just want to go ahead and thank everyone for joining us. My name is Ricardo here with Winners and Losers. I'm joined again by Nick Holmberg, who today will be discussing some of these blockbuster Colorado trades that have recently happened, as well as some of our players participating in the U.S. men's national team and their run to the final in this year's Gold Cup. So I'm thankful to be joined by Nick. How are you today, Nick?
Awesome. Doing great. Thanks. Just in soccer heaven recently. Just been nuts.
Yeah, honestly, we've had a pretty good week as Colorado Rapids fans. This week it started off great with the signing of Mark-Anthony Kaye from the LAFC for a $1 million in general allocation money. Nick, you wrote a piece on reinforcements have arrived. So wondering if you could go ahead and summarize a little bit on this trade for the Colorado Rapids.
Yeah. So like you said, Mark-Anthony Kaye, midfielder from LAFC, comes over for $1 million in GAM, the general allocation money. Figure could rise to about another $250,000 or so. They also so there's performance incentives in there, and then there is a 10% transfer fee that goes back to LAFC if we sell him in the future. So he just finished last night Gold Cup duty with Canada. He's been a big part of the spine of the Canadian team as they've risen quite a bit, and they definitely look like they can do some damage in World Cup qualifying. But yeah, I believe last night he departed for Colorado. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great move. I mean, you've obviously got one of the very best midfielders in the league on the move.
Agreed.
Yeah, and LAFC had an embarrassment of riches. We kind of do now in midfield as well. But this is one of those things that happens where sometimes you cut a player loose. And anyway, we definitely made the best of this. I would say that. With the move, the very first thing that I thought was, well, are we losing some players too? Because you wouldn't think, we would just be bringing in Kaye and then keeping Kellen Acosta, Cole Bassett. When Eunice Nomley comes back from injury, he'll be in there. Jack Price, obviously. I mean, it becomes crowded, and right now we don't know of anybody else on the move, but. At any rate, that was one of the initial kind of questions that I think everybody is thinking. But the general manager of the Colorado Rapids, Porag Smith, had a pretty good quote welcoming Mark-Anthony Kaye in. But he said he reinforces the midfield with a player of his quality. This is a quote from Porag. He's been one of the best central midfielders in the league over the last several years and has played a critical role in the success of the teams he's been a part of. We look forward to seeing him integrate into our group as we enter the second half of the season and continue to push for a playoff spot. That last part is so important because this move is a signal of intent to me. And right there, he says it at the end, that we're in a good place. I mean, we're in fourth position, but now we're pushing even further at the right time by bringing in such a quality player like Mark-Anthony Kaye.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially on that last statement. We're sitting right now in fourth place, and so it's never more looked like a clear picture until recently that the Colorado Rapids are serious contenders to make that playoff spot. I mean, I just got to witness that game against FC Dallas, and we were completely dominant in their half and attacking wise. And I'm glad, as you said, we're bringing more midfield depth, and it is going to get a little bit crowded with Kellen Acosta there. Cole Bassett recently playing a little bit higher up the field. Jack Price has been taking that responsibility of staying back and cleaning up that defensive effort. He's been playing more central to keep control of that midfield. So hopefully with the introduction of Kaye here, we can go ahead and see him, maybe play a little bit more of that 8 box to box, force him to go up more into the attack. Now I've noticed, based on the words that people have been recently saying about him, that he's a very progressive passer. So a lot of his passes really go up the field to create some chances upward. And I don't know, the Rapids have not been entirely lacking attacking talent this year. I think honestly we've been bringing it to teams scoring multiple goals a game. So this is kind of nice to just have a new individual in the midfield that can bring in that talent, that depth, and those progressive forwards passes. You mentioned the possible departure of some players. We've heard some rumors here and there that Cole Bassett, one of our midfielders, one of the younger ones on the end, has linked with some moves in Europe. Particularly, I've heard some rumors here that some German clubs, some Swiss clubs are interested in there. And honestly, that could be a little bit more. How do I say this? I know a lot of the Rapids fans have a soft spot for Cole Bassett, so kind of seeing
Mhm.
him leave is kind of like seeing your son, your daughter go off to college. Like, oh, they're going off to doing better things. But
Right.
uh, obviously, we've had a great time keeping him. And so the question now, Nick, is Mark Anthony Kaye here a starter for the Colorado Rapids, or is he going to be integrated as a versatile player, or what does his future as a Rapids individual looks like for the rest of the season up until that playoff
Mhm.
spot?
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff in there. Yeah, I mean, I think he's an automatic starter. Um, I don't know exactly what the international schedule would be for him following the Gold Cup, and they're out of the Gold Cup. Of course, we're in the final now with U.S. Mexico, but um, pending any, uh, I guess there's going to be World Cup qualifiers in the fall, so I guess he could miss some time, and that's one of the interesting things. I mean, I think he's immediately a starter, and he's starter quality. Um, it's also the highest. What is it exactly as a language? Let me double check it. What's one of the highest fees? So it's the largest sum of allocation money the club has ever paid. Um, so in a team that we frequently get called, starless, and
Mm,
that's part of what makes us great. We kind of have a star now, and he's also a really humble one, and that's why I think he fits in really well. Being left-footed, he's kind of similar to Cole Bassett in his skill set. I mean, not as also not too dissimilar from Kellen Acosta. I mean, they're both different players. Cole goes forward more. Kellen, plays better defensively. But I see some similarities in both of them. But um, yeah, I think that he is in, and one of the interesting things is going to be all the squad rotation that we're going to see
right.
with World Cup qualifying coming up, because you have Kellen Acosta, who's likely going to be out, and then if you also have Mark Anthony Kaye out,
Yep.
all of a sudden you're missing quite a bit. So that's one of the reasons I think it's not very likely that we'd see Cole Bassett or Kellen Acosta go. If I had to pick one, I'd say probably Cole Bassett is more likely. And the reported interest that I've seen, just that you mentioned, was from the Athletic, that Cole Bassett has interest from Switzerland and Germany, but no specific clubs. And then meanwhile, they don't report any specific clubs or countries at all for Kellen Acosta. So he is, if he really wants to push for a move, he probably can. And he has said that if he wants to make the World Cup squad, he probably has to do that. And that's his long-term goal and dream and everything. So there's a lot of different moving parts. It's pretty hard to predict, honestly, but I think when Mark Anthony Kaye is available and healthy, he's a lock to be playing. So that left central midfield role, yeah, Jack Price will be the one who sits in the hole and sits back the furthest. I could see Mark Anthony Kaye, sliding right in there next to him, and then having, as we usually do, one midfielder who's a little bit further forward, like a Cole Bassett or a Nico Mosquita, Benazet, something like that. Um, and as far as like the chemistry and everything, it just, I briefly mentioned this before, that he's such a humble guy, and the way he carries himself, I think it just fits in perfectly. And in my opinion, it's clearly part of the strategy by Porak Smith and the front office to go to have the chemistry in mind, and try to keep team cohesion. I just think that his hardworking kind of style, and not super flashy, off the field. I don't think he's going to cause any problems. I mean, I think it's one of the most exciting transfers we've ever had, easily.
Honestly,
And
yes.
yeah, I mean, it could be a major turning point for the club. And again, the timing is just perfect. It's a clear sign of intent as well. But yeah, I think Kaye is a very, very good quality player, and he is starting immediately pending any injuries or international games he'd be playing in.
I couldn't agree more on the thoughts that, we're clearly going with intent. We're really pushing to make that playoff spot. We're really pushing to be a dominant force in the MLS. And, we'll talk about Kellen Acosta, his dream to play, part of that World Cup team. his dream to go ahead and move abroad. And, Cole Bassett, we'll touch on that. A couple sources discussing that he'll be going to Europe as well, and how, I know we are not linked with any teams at the moment, but as of right now, the two players are not going anywhere. You discussed being an automatic starter for Mark. So who sits if he's available to play this weekend against Austin?
Yeah, I mean, playing last night, I would say it's extremely doubtful he play this weekend. I think he is available, but it's a great question, but it's also tough to guess what head coach Robin Fraser is
Right.
going to announce for the lineup each week. I mean, he does a heavy rotation in the squad, and I think it's a good thing. We keep a lot of players happy. You keep competition in the squad. You know, it's a really tough one because, I mean, if you think of Kellen Acosta in the same boat, they both might be sitting, after playing international games so recently. Well, Kellen Acosta is not going to be available at all because of the Gold Cup final on Sunday.
Right.
So all of a sudden, if he's not in and Kay's not in, then we're probably looking at Jack Price with Cole Bassett and maybe Nico Mosqueda. That seems to be the pecking order when we're given this situation. That's what Fraser does. So that would be my guess for the central midfield, but it's also really hard to predict if he's going to go with 5 at the back or 4 at the back and how many midfielders. I mean, it's,
Right.
I haven't seen a consistent thread myself. Maybe I'm missing it, but it seems to be a little bit of a guessing game until the lineup announcements come out. But I would expect moving forward, I don't think he would need that much rest before having to play again. But yeah, I would say he's definitely going to miss the game Saturday in Austin. And then it's about a week, the following week. So August 7th against Kansas City, I would expect him to make his debut then.
Well, I'm really excited to see him play. Honestly, getting to see the opportunity at Dick's Sporting Goods Park. Later down the road, if Kellen Acosta's back, Cole Bassett is still with us, Jack Price, just to see the options that Robin Fraser will put out there, especially as we get closer to playoff spot. Unfortunately, actually, I don't want to say unfortunately. Thankfully, he's not the only transfer that's recently happened with the Colorado Rapids. One of our own who's recently come back, Dominique Baji from Nashville, is coming back to the Colorado Rapids. What are your thoughts exactly on this player, known with his history back with the Colorado Rapids, coming back at a time that we're pushing to make that playoff spot?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think a couple of things. I mean, I think it's number one, it's a great deal. I mean, they got a bargain price to pay $50K in GAM. Nashville would receive an additional $50K in GAM if the Rapids re-sign Baji for 2022. So he kind of has to prove himself to get that extra money. But I mean, he's played here before, so fitting in with the team. I know in particular, he was good friends with Courtney Ford. I'm sure with some other guys, but that chemistry part is just huge. It can just seamlessly fit right in. So for a midseason move, I mean, pretty ideal. Dom Badji, Senegalese native, he played with us when he first started his professional career, so 2015. He did score, and get some assists, and did the same in Dallas. Did fairly well, I think, all the way around. Some fans are fairly pessimistic. He's gone. I mean, actually, in Nashville, I think it was just 1 goal and 2 assists. So things kind of dried up as far as production. He was also kind of crowded out. Lots of players there, but I think it's a great opportunity to reignite his career. He knows he has to prove himself, and for us to have another just true striker. I mean, Shinya Shiki does well at striker as kind of our backup option, but to me, he seems much more like a natural winger who's just a very good finisher. So, to me, this is immediately we have a guy off the bench who can come in for Rubio, and we've seen Rubio sit, whether he's being rested or injury lately, which he actually has an injury and is not playing on Saturday. So Baji is available. He could play. I would guess he wouldn't start. I'd say it's a very low probability to start that quickly. You probably see Shinyashiki in, and maybe he comes off the bench, but it adds the depth that we really need at striker. I think a lot of fans wanted that like DP big level spending, but in case you haven't paid attention, this is the Colorado Rapids.
Right.
The Cronkies are the owners. They don't shell out the bucks
No.
for this team. It's just not. It's not the
Not gonna
style.
happen.
Don't expect it. Don't expect it. Yes,
To
we
be
have one
content-
DP and he's injured for most of the season, but that's not going to change things for them apparently. Dropping 50 mil on Ben White for Arsenal, apparently not a problem. But anyway, look, we can't expect those kind of things. This is what we do. We do the interleague moves. I think they're savvy moves. I think the front office, knows what they're doing. They do a good job. They have a clear strategy. Part of the Mark Anthony K transfer included a super draft pick, a first round super draft pick.
I saw that.
So if we were to stack those, look at what we did this past season. We traded the picks and went up and got a number 3 pick, and now we have, Philip Mayaka, one of the best young guys coming out of college, playing on loan with the Switchbacks. So there's a long-term goal as well, and Porax said as much. Let me see if I can find the exact quote, but I mean, let's see. Well, the point still stands. I mean, we're getting him at an important time, adds the depth. We have the, he has that veteran presence. He's familiar with the club. I think it's a very, just like the K transfer, very easy decision in the end, I think, for both head coach Robin Fraser and GM Porax Smith.
In terms of depth, I'm pretty content with him coming back to Colorado. I'm not necessarily, I was a little bit on the skeptical side. I'm not going to lie. He has great pace and great understanding of finding the space between the defenders. And seeing him in his previous time with the Colorado Rapids, I thought what he lacked the most was that finishing mentality, just putting it into the net. A lot of close calls, not necessarily he's a bad player. I never thought of that.
Right.
I think this is a great signing to add depth, a true number 9 up top to play that striker role, especially with this revived Colorado Rapids team that's very attack-minded. We see a lot of balls being driven into the box, being crossed into the box, and a lot of our younger players like Cole Bassett like to drive up the middle. He's still a young player, but what I was trying to say is Cole Bassett. And I've seen them drive up the middle, so him kind of drifting away from those forwards or holding the defenders on his back, being that hold-up play so our midfield can attack up and distribute wide to Barrios. That has consistently worked for us. So hopefully with the ball being so dumb to our wingers and looking for the cross in, a true number 9 like him can find that space between the center backs, put it back into the net.
Yeah, and like you said, the pace is huge. We don't, Barrios brought in tremendous amounts of pace and changed things for us. And I think having a striker like Baji, you can get him behind the lines with that pace, gives us something different, more direct. Couldn't agree with you more.
It's kind of nice. I've seen him with his technical ability. If we can dump the ball up into their final third, he can get there, hold it up, wait for our midfielders to come and play it back. I've seen a couple of our other Rapids players do it, but that looks a gassed amount, and their defensive work rate coming back could be a little bit slower. So with a player like him, it could obviously help out our midfielders not having to commit an extra 20 yards to make that sprint, kind of play into the box a little bit more, at the top of the box, receive. I like to see us shoot a little bit more. There's a lot of hesitation I've noticed, especially with Shinyashinsky. If I pronounced that correctly, apologies. A lot of hesitation when it comes to the top of the box. He wants to get a little bit closer. So hopefully with Baji, we get to see a little bit of that. I got the ball at the top of the box, 2 touches, let me get a shot off or something.
Yeah, perfectly said. The connection play, the hold-up play is great. And, the other thing that could be pretty cool to see is Rubio and Baji playing together on the field at the same time. If we're losing, I could definitely see, roll the dice, throw on a second striker. I mean, Rubio had probably his best season with Kai Kamara when they were playing together. When he was playing as more of a second striker, Rubio was. And, I think any opportunity to create that again is a no-brainer. I mean, we have a lot of pieces to fit in. I get it. There's, it's not easy, but seeing both of them on the field at the same time would also be pretty cool.
Yeah, and Robin Fraser has done a really good decision this year to make our team look more tactically sound in keeping the ball and progressing as a unit in possession. And I think that link up play, Baji can go ahead and get that chemistry with our tens and a little bit of our more of our midfielders, even the guys out wide to hold up the ball, play it back. I kind of, we've been really good at those 1-2 passes, 1-2 here, and then the third pass is long to the side, kind of finding the space. And honestly, a lot of it is what drives these players to make these passes in the final third, I think, is also having that confidence in them and that reassurance that our back line not only is organized, but there's Price in front of them that likes to clean up and yell into your face, make that foul, that tactical foul if we need. And then our two center backs. I got to watch Abu Bakar against FC Dallas drop amazing performance. I mean, he was so controlling of our back line. And so hopefully these new players coming into the team and with the talent that we have that's even attracting interest from Europe, Fraser, gets to play around and gets to experiment with his tactical genius, gets to see what he can do, create something new. We've seen different formation. We've even seen three in the back. We've seen some players step to roles that we've not seen before, especially with Sam Vines gone, Kellen Acosta gone. We've seen Trusty throw into that left back spot, which personally, I think he's done excellent. He's met way above expectations, playing a little bit to the left there, away from his center back role. But other than that, yeah, we talked about a lot of great players coming into the club. So far, we've gotten two. And so the project is there, the push for us to make the playoffs. But a couple of our players, especially the ones that get the international call-ups, have gained interest from overseas. And so our left back, Sam Vines, moving to Belgium. What are your thoughts on that, Nick?
Yeah, so during yesterday's press conference with the Rapids, they had announced that, this was kind of interesting, they had announced that Porek Smith would be joining the press conference, which is pretty rare. So, there's a lot of speculation of what could happen. And to be honest, it was a little bit of a little bit anticlimactic because we didn't see these reported moves that we thought might be happening. Now, nobody really saw Dom Badji coming. That kind of came out of left field and it was over the line really quickly. But so to actually answer your question though, I mean, on Sam Vines leaving, it's, being a member of the media, I am neutral, supposed to be. I'm also a fanboy, and Sam Vines is one of my favorite players to watch. I mean, I think he's easily one of the best left backs in the U.S. pool. And for him to go abroad and chase his dreams and further develop, I think is just wonderful. Royal Antwerp in Belgium is a very good step, I think. The Belgian league is definitely good quality. Royal Antwerp, I think we're third in the league and second in the league and third in the tournament. They have a similar format to MLS actually. So which that means they're going to be playing in the Europa League. And this past season, I mean, they shocked Tottenham Hotspur, beat them in the Europa League. They're a very good team. And, I think it's great that he's coming in there. They lost their left back. It sounds like he is not like, go sit the bench. Jordan Lukaku completed his loan at Antwerp and moved back to Lazio. So the left back slot looks open for him at Royal Antwerp. So we're just kind of waiting on the final confirmation and paperwork to be done, as it were. But I'm thrilled for him. It does seem like it's a move where he can go in and learn, and maybe there's not the immense pressure that he would have if it was a step above. So it's maybe a springboard for him. But it's just wonderful to see it. His hard work has paid off, and obviously he's noticed. And yeah, I just think it's a really ideal fit. And then also, listeners, if you guys get ESPN Plus, you'll be able to see select Belgian league games this year, which is pretty cool. So they're not going to have every game. I go to worldsoccertalk.com. I don't know what you use. Everybody probably has something different, but I like World Soccer Talk because it's just in real time. You just pull up the homepage every day. I promise I don't have an affiliation with them, but you can easily find out, Belgian League is playing today. These are the teams that are on. And in the same list, you'll see MLS, Premier League, whatever. So definitely a step up for him, and super proud that that he gets to take this next step, and also that the Rapids Academy, gets the spotlight on them for this. I mean,
Yes.
technically not the first player to leave for Europe from the academy. Shane O'Neill was maybe 2015, I think, around there. But he did move abroad. It didn't really work out for him. He came back and he plays for Seattle now. But this would be I guess technically the second move abroad, and a lot more money. 2 million is a pretty good fee. But yeah, because at the same time, I think it's tough because you see like Cole Bassett, it seems like he's going to move abroad, and offers are like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even though I think his value is a lot higher, and that's probably why he's not
Pushing.
moving yet. But so with that said, yeah, it's great to see. You're getting at least a $2 million fee out of Vines. We're going to be able to convert a little over the Rapids organization. We can convert a little over $1 million right away. So it looks like, even though we're shopping for a left back replacement, it looks like the money for K is immediately, used.
Good to use.
Or produced, yeah. The other thing that I was looking into in this press conference yesterday was getting confirmation on the replacement left back, which we didn't get, unfortunately. So ESPN Brazil reported that a loan was completed Wednesday night, actually, for left back Lucas Esteves from Palmeiras. And he looks like a player that, I mean, I haven't been able to watch him play, but from the research I've done, seems like it would be a good move. He seems very athletic, physically gifted, and a good work rate, but also a little bit of a project. Didn't fall in with the fans, really. Not that he did anything wrong, but it's just one of those things that was kind of uncovered when I was doing some research, and others as well. It's not exclusive to me, but anyway, he had a lot of competition at the left back spot, but when the Copa America scandal broke out, as it were, and they called in the second team, he was a part of that Brazilian national team that was called up, and he did train with them. So 21 years old, he has a future. When we were asking Coach Frazier about it, they couldn't confirm it, and they just, how these things are. They can't, it's not done, so they can't really say anything about it. But unfortunately, not finalized yet. But looks like we could have a potential replacement, and just like Vines, it's just kind of a matter of course before everything is finalized. And we'll keep you updated on that, listeners. But yeah, unfortunately, nothing finalized there on those moves.
Let's keep the speculation going. I want to go ahead and think that the Rapids are actually, honestly, they're moving really fast, and they're moving with diligent care. They are noting that with Sam Vines leaving, they want to go ahead and quickly find that replacement. And if these speculations are just rumors, or if we're just waiting for confirmation, it's great to see that at least we're not taking any time to go ahead and sit back and wait. We're thinking, okay, what's our next best move? And that we're still staying with a young player, with a project that hopefully can grow here in the MLS. I've not done a lot of research myself on the player. I'm waiting to go ahead and hear a little bit more, and then seeing a little bit more of the skills that he's willing to offer, how he fits in with the team. And it's kind of nice to see another Brazilian player on our team to build that chemistry. Hopefully he can go ahead and fit in with a couple of the other guys. But here, Sam Vines, it's wonderful. Hopefully, he gets that move done pretty soon. We make some money. The Colorado Rapids are now on the spotlight, especially their academy, with players. We're developing great talent to go, overseas. Hopefully, a couple other join up. Cole Bassett one day will make his move. Hopefully, it's the right one at the right price. Following Sam Vines, hopefully at the right time. Finishing up a little bit more paperwork and such like that, getting confirmation. But if you look back 10 years ago at the U.S. team, we had, some players. The MLS was more of a league where Europeans came over, finished their final years. Now it's kind of shifting over where the MLS is getting a lot more competitive, and players are leaving the MLS. Players are really shining on there. And looking, at this time, how does it feel like to know that the Colorado Rapids are part of that growth of U.S. soccer and U.S. development outside of the U.S., and hopefully continuing to build players for our first 11. It's, seeing Kellen Acosta back at the Nations League final, playing all 120 minutes. Not only did that make me smile, that's an MLS player full of European teammates, but that's a Colorado Rapids player in his hometown at the, where his fans are there to back him up, playing full 120 minutes, not just in the midfield role, but also showing that he's versatile and going to the left. And so to finish all of that, capitalize all of that, I just want to go ahead and say, U.S. soccer is growing. U.S. talent is expanding outside of the MLS. And it's even showing how great a Colorado Rapids Academy is and our players are. And we're doing great business in bringing in players. Do you see our future, long-term, 5 years from now, going in the right directions? One day we're going to be serious contenders for the title. One day we're going to have serious players come here. We're going to have serious contentions for titles, even making deep runs in continental tournaments, and even having players of star quality coming here, dropping a few years, great performances, and then moving on, or even having younger players getting 1 or 2 years shine, and then boom, grabbing interest from somewhere else. And do you see yourself as a Rapids fanboy, just like myself, that we're headed in the right directions after maybe a few years of darkness?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, it's a great feeling. Coloradans should be proud. Rapids fans should be proud. I mean, it's fantastic. And I know I've said this before, but I'm going to keep harping on it. But the front office deserves a lot of credit. And in the press conference yesterday, poor Ike Smith did say, when he was talking about Mark Anthony Kaye, his quote was, "We've been looking at him for a long time, actually. Really good fit for this group. He adds to what we've been building on these last few years." And then Coach Frazier had piled on, from a character standpoint, it was an easy choice. I mean, really emphasized how easy of a choice it was.
Yeah, of course.
As a player, also an easy choice. You can do everything well, play well in a crowded, fast midfield. So the point of that quote really is, I mean, there's good stuff in there, but they were actually looking at Mark Anthony Kaye for a long time, and perhaps even like 2 or 3 years, maybe. So they keep things under wraps. They don't have the amount of like rumors and speculation that a lot of international soccer fans are used to, especially the big major European clubs. Things are kept under a tight wrap here. I mean, you just can't, you just don't get, you don't have a situation like Don Badji where nobody heard a single rumor at all, nothing, and it's just announced. I mean, that almost never happens in a lot of leagues in the world. Everything's operated a little bit differently. But point being, this whole overarching point that you're making as well. Yeah, the Rapids have proven this. They put in a lot of research. They put in a lot of time. They want to build the youth of this team, but we also want to win. That's something that poor Ike Smith was saying yesterday as well. And that's exactly what we want to hear. I think we really like to see, develop your youth, and some of it, there's a good healthy turnover of players are going to be sold because they're going to move on in their careers as long as they develop. But to develop that young talent, bring in veterans when we need to, which we do, and I think it makes a really healthy fit for the team, and it bodes well for the future. I mean, with using more advanced metrics, which the Rapids do, and we're one of the first teams to do in the league, I think they have a better handle on scouting players, evaluating talent, and executing on player transactions than most teams in the league. Yes, we don't purchase players from abroad very often, and that's okay. I think that's okay, because especially when you're doing this, when you're in 4th place in the West, right now, when you're performing well, when you're winning on the road, when you have a keeper who's tied for the league lead in shutouts, you can't really complain, I think. But I mean, as it relates to the national team, it all just fits in perfectly. I mean, it's obviously good for the club to develop a guy like a Sam Vines, but it's also obviously good for the U.S. National team. And to be part of it, like your original question, and like I said right away, I mean, we should be proud. I mean, it's awesome. The staff, the whole staff, not just the guys at the top, the names that we've named, but, there's a whole staff in a lot of different areas that really make all of this happen. And, I think the Rapids are proving that the organization, given the resources they have, do an absolutely phenomenal job. Um, whether it's developing, acquiring talent, selling talent, or now, as we've done the last 2 seasons, I guess, perform well and get wins. And all of a sudden, right now, I mean, obviously, we did not, we laid a dud against RSL, and we have that history of doing that, going to Rio Tinto. But this team has really turned from okay, we can seesaw. 1 week we can beat a good team, next we lose to a bad team. All of a sudden now there's a lot more consistency. It looks like a team that can close out games and win, and they're a hard team to come up against. I don't think after these moves, I don't think anybody wants to come up against the Rapids right now, unless they're just trolling and it's just banter. We still the K move. We still don't really know how it's going to shake out. Are we gonna lose any players? We have another week of the transfer window being open, so there's plenty of time for somebody to move on, and we don't, there is some uncertainty as to how it's going to play out. Now, on the flip side, look, if we end up having Mark Anthony Kaye, Kellen Acosta, and Jack Price, by the way, Cole Bassett, all staying in the midfield for the rest of the season, it is a really, really exciting time. And you can pick so many different areas for the Rapids, and also as it relates to the U.S. national team and development, and get excited. We are coming out of that darkness for sure, as you said, and it's arguably one of the most optimistic times I think Rapids fans have felt in a very long time.
I know, honestly, I think it is a great time to be a Rapids fan from this year alone, the season. I think the staff, the environment at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, it's been safe. It's been an enjoyment. Every game that I've gone, the game has been better than the last one. I think the Rapids team has performed amazingly. They've given us a new style of football that brings us hope and joy. I've gotten to experience sitting next to the C38 section and got to hear a lot of their chants and their passion towards the game, and getting that true fan feeling. I wasn't just watching the game, I was partaking in the game. And I want to go ahead and close out here with a few questions, a little bit of thoughts, just some quick thoughts. Nick, Coach Frazier, MLS Coach of the Year or not?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't even, off the top of my head, I don't even know what the short list really is, but I mean, he's done a phenomenal job. There were some pieces on this team, some players that I think some fans had given up on, or maybe didn't think they were past their prime or something. And I would say Danny Wilson is probably one of the guys that I think of right there, which I think is unfair. And I know some people would agree with me. He's been good, but this season he has turned it up to a different level. And, and his leadership as well, I think, just seems like it's fully blossoming. I mean, it's really cool to see. I think his mistakes on the ball mistakes have really trimmed down. But yeah, I mean, to be able to manage, this isn't, a team where you just have an easy lineup to pick every week. You have a lot of players that are developing. The most players that have represented the U.S. national team in MLS in the last couple of months. We've had the most call-ups every time, I think. But and if not during a certain window, tied for the most or something. I mean, it's been a lot. So there's been a lot of adversity. Again, they're doing. He does a lot without without being able to spend a lot of money, which other teams frankly can. I mean, if you look at the standings, the level of spending on other teams ahead of us, is astronomical. For right now to have the Galaxy, KC, and Seattle are the teams ahead of us. I mean, my gosh, I mean, you could pick one or two players in each of those teams and their salary is higher than almost our whole team. So yeah, especially given what he has in front of him, he does a phenomenal job. But that notwithstanding, I think everyone has taken a notice, and there's, I think, a lot more respect for the coach and the team and what they're doing right now.
He's done a fantastic job in rotating the squad and taking this Rapids team and making them a serious contender for a playoff spot. We both want him to become that MLS Coach of the Year. What is missing right now to make him a serious top lock-in contender for that? Is it, we need that playoff spot? Do we need a deep run in the playoff spot? Because, domestically right now, he's been doing great during the season. We've shown consistency. We've been able to bring in great talent and hopefully he's able to go ahead and manage that squad depth. But what is that one thing we need, one more little step to make sure that, hopefully Coach Frazier becomes that MLS Coach of the Year?
Yeah, so great question. I would say, if you look at the standings, both Eastern and Western Conference have one team that's clearly way out in front, this New England Revolution in the East, and then the Sounders here in the West. And the Sounders are a really hard team to overcome because they are one of the very rare teams in MLS, and good teams abroad do this too. But if they miss players, they don't miss a beat. It's like, it doesn't matter if a star goes down; they seem to just always pull it off. But I think it's a little bit more, winning. I think we got to see how the season shakes out. But yeah, currently sitting in fourth. So we've got 24 points, 2 games in hand on the Sounders, but they're up at 32 points. So 8 points ahead. So obviously it's a pretty big reach to, to go that far. But yeah, as far as the playoffs go, obviously we're in a good position to make the playoffs, but to go in and win games and make a deep run, I think it would have to be a very deep, serious run. I think we're absolutely contenders to win MLS Cup this year. Again, I would put money that nobody wants to face this Rapids team right now. Nobody wants to come to Colorado and play. It looks like a different team from the first couple of weeks of the season. But I think it's the winning. I think if we push, if we somehow get up to second or third place in the league, or make a very deep run, I think MLS Cup. Obviously, if you win it, then you make a really good case, and that's the best. That's his best chance, is if we can win the MLS Cup.
Of course, and then just want to go ahead and close out here on the topic of, we have 3 MLS players from the Colorado Rapids who are representing our national team. The U.S. team is playing Mexico in the Gold Cup final. We've seen Kellen Acosta and Sam Bynes start in the previous matches. You see that ball rolling? Do you see these 2 players, still starting in the final, and then you see the United States coming on top? What is this going to look like? How is it going to be different from the Nations League final? Now, I know the Nations League final had different players and such. There might be some revenge thoughts from the Mexico fans, from the Mexican team, but are we going to see that same dogfight that we saw back at, the Denver Stadium, or are we going to see a new kind of something different with Greg's tactics? I hope we get to see Kellen Acosta start, continue there. I think Sam Bynes at left back, he's done a phenomenal job. Just want to go ahead and point that out, that these 2 Rapids players have taken part of the U.S. team throughout this whole tournament. Lewis, not so much, but those 2 specifically I want to focus on. Are we going to go ahead and see them on the final? And do you think the United States is going to come out on top?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, yes, it is going to be a dogfight. And do you want anybody else but Kellen Acosta in there, listeners? Come on. Kellen, you've seen him in the Nations League, and then at the time of recording, it was last night when there was another penalty, and we got some Kellen Acosta shithousery, just getting into the heads of the other team, and not just like running up and being extremely dirty, kicking players or something like that, but he goes in and he knows how to waste time on a penalty and get into their heads, and they missed both of those PKs. I think Kellen Acosta starts. He's getting the one challenge is he's getting marked out of matches now because he's been playing so well that I think opponents are taking notice. The match against Qatar last night, the strikers are trying to mark him out of the match as that deep lying number 6, which is also a good sign that the people are taking notice and everything. But I think Kellen Acosta is a lock at starting in the final. I think he is a lock to be the number 6 behind Tyler Adams. And Tyler Adams is down. I think he has proven himself to be good enough to start for the U.S. national team, no matter who we're playing. He's had just a phenomenal tournament. He's really done well. I mean, Rapids fans know that he, in the last year and a half since Fraser took over, he has redefined his game. He's a new man out there, and it's awesome to see. So that is just the huge bright spot, I think. On the flip side, the not so bright spot, you briefly mentioned it, Jonathan Lewis, his first game in the Gold Cup was pretty much a dud. He went out and laid a dud, unfortunately. He just kind of looked lost out there, wasn't really connecting. He was subbed off, and I don't know if he's seen another minute since, but hopefully he can overcome that mentally. It's a challenge. Do not expect him to be playing in the final. Matthew Hoppe clearly marked himself as one of the best players in the tournament, and he's got that spot. I think Sam Vines has taken the spot. He's beaten out George Bello, who is a very good player. I think we've probably talked about it on this podcast before that, that's the competition for the future left back. I mean, Anthony Robinson is the clear starter, right? And then you've got, is it Bello or Vines? And I think after this tournament, we see that it's Vines. He's done well. I think he's been asked to play, Rapids fans probably notice this, I think he's been asked to play more defensively, to hang back a little bit further. I mean, he gets a lot of freedom with the Rapids, so not a big surprise. But he's doing well. It's really excited for him. This is probably one of the biggest, this is probably the biggest national team game for him. So really excited for Sunday. I think they're both going to start. And the Mexico team, it's kind of crazy to see the U.S. on the up and up, and Mexico just kind of stale lately. Mm-hmm. Some of it's been a little bit of luck. I mean, if you had Raul Jimenez in for Mexico in the last year, it could have been totally different, because that's their problem, is striking and finishing. And so we're a little bit lucky. Player. Yeah. And I'm glad that he came back from his injury. Yeah. Wish him the best with his health and the rest of his career. But should be an interesting match. It looks like, last night the Mexico team really, struggled, I think, and they get in their own heads a little bit. And there's some mental hurdles for that team. They have quality, no doubt, but they aren't really able to put it together lately. Lainez and Lozano, in my opinion, they just don't really perform that well recently for the national team. They're great wingers. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting time where we're on the rise and they're not. It's kind of weird. It's exciting, but it should be a really fun match. And yeah, really proud to see. I think that we're going to see two Rapids players starting on Sunday.
The United States is on the come up. Mexico has been stale lately. Hopefully these two Rapids players, Kellen Acosta and Sam Vines, get the nod to go ahead and start for this Gold Cup final. There's a lot at stake at this. Earlier the year, the United States won at the Nations League final thanks to a Christian Pulisic penalty and a save from Ethan Horvath. What are your predictions for this game? Final score.
Final score. Oh, man. I'm going to say 2-1 U.S. Matt Turner's going to let one in. I think he's had one in this tournament. But anyway, I'm excited to see Matt Turner play, too. That's one of the big things. For the listeners, if you don't know, myself and Ricardo used to play keeper back in our amateur days and college club soccer. So always looking at that keeper position, but Matt Turner, he's been doing well lately. But I think it's going to, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy game at all, but my expectation is that the U.S. can still win. It might be, as some drag the team and want to point out that, it's not even the B team, it's the C team, which is ridiculous. And I hope they carry that chip on their shoulder and go in and clean house. I think it's going to be a very tough, very CONCACAF type game, but I think that that we've got enough out there. I think that we could easily see, as talented as DK is, Zardes coming in, Roldan, mix in those veterans, which aren't as sexy to talk about, or the picks, but you mix in those veterans and they do well. Look how they did. I think Berhalter's doing a great job, and I think the U.S. can bring home the silverware on Sunday.
That's what we're hoping for. The expectation is there for the United States to win this. This is going to be a great dogfight. There's going to be a lot on the line. It's going to be a very intense game. I hope the United States come out on top. I personally think it's going to be 1-0 game, something very small. I think there's going to be a lot of chances. I just think Mexico, although they're going to be a very dominant team on the ball, they're just not going to have that luck against the United States. It's going to be a fairly busy night for midfield. I think a lot of the game is probably going to be played in the middle there. A lot of loose balls, cleaning up, a lot of challenges in there. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of dead game where the game is stopped. Nick and I do take a lot of notice in goalkeeping performances because of background. It's been a great summer for the goalkeepers, the U.S. goalkeepers. You know, Ethan Horvath had an amazing performance. Matt Turner has been unbelievable this Gold Cup tournament, even had the man of the match performance against Qatar. And there's been a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of eyebrows, a lot of questioning, but there's been a lot of little talk, little chit chat. Who would you guys like to see as our starting goalkeeper? I think I blurred out a little bit again there.
Yeah. Who should be? Yeah, it is a big question. Who's going to be starting a keeper?
Yeah, we have Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, Ethan Horvath, and I don't know if you saw that Instagram picture from Ochoa, the U.S. the Mexican team.
Yeah, adios. Yeah, it seems like, some people might say we screwed it up because he has immense talent, but it is what it is. I mean, you know, he's very good, but yeah, it doesn't look like we get to keep him. But those are the three keepers I think that you have to talk about. There could be other players in the pool, but right now, Steffen is the number one starter for me. And then right now, there's the competition in that second spot, but I do think it's Horvath and then Turner right now. But I mean, any one of those guys could start, and I think we'd feel good. And then the team would, the defense would, the midfield would. You know, I think you'd feel good with any of those guys in goal behind you for the U.S.
I think honestly right now is a great time in U.S. history, especially for the goalkeepers, to just know that you have three goalkeepers who are around both solid, physically demanding, and they're showing great potential and a great experience in the back there. I know that in the past, it was a little bit difficult with just Tim Howard and Brad Guzan, and, you know, the level difference there sometimes showed in games, you know, in games where we had Tim Howard against games where we had Brad Guzan. And now it's kind of now that question's not there. You know, Zach Steffen's not there.
Yeah.
Oh, our second goalkeeper is going in. He just dropped a phenomenal performance. He just stopped a PK from Cuadrado to win us the Nations League. Now we have another goalkeeper, Matt Turner, you know, showing that he's available and he's competing for that spot, and he wants to be the next image for the goalkeeper of the U.S. So that makes me happy that the goalkeeper situation for the U.S. is competitive. There's a future there, and that, you know, that post Tim Howard and Guzan era, you know, it's not dead. It's not necessarily who's going to step up to the plate. You know, now there's going to be a lot of competition there. Yeah, we lost Ochoa. You know, hope, you know, his future. Best of luck with him. And just to kind of summarize everything, U.S. is headed in the right direction. You know, with this game against Mexico, hopefully they continue to be a dominant force in CONCACAF. Hopefully it goes well in the World Cup qualifiers. We get to see the U.S. back into a major tournament. Italy, after missing a major tournament, got back into one and showed everybody that they're a dominant force and just won the Euro. So hopefully with the United States coming back, we get to see these players in 2022 at a new level, at a peak level. I've done it again with the camera. No worries there. I'm going to go ahead and try to fix that again. But I want to go ahead and say thank you so much for joining me today and discuss the Colorado Rapids, the acquisition of Mark-Anthony Kaye and Baji. Hopefully this rest of the season going up to playoffs, we get to go ahead and talk a little bit more. You and I, we get to go ahead and get some content out there at the games. Dick's Sporting Goods Park has been an amazing experience this year. I just found out that they serve foot-long hot dogs and burgers there. I've been munching on other things there. So that's, you know, I'm having a great time being a first season ticket member at the Colorado Rapids. They've been nothing but amazing. I've met so many great people, and it's been amazing. So just want to go ahead and thank you one more time, Nick, for coming on the show today with Winners and Losers. We got to go ahead and discuss the Colorado Rapids as they take on this weekend Austin FC at their new stadium. And so one more time, thank you so much. Clay, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And listeners, you can find me on Twitter at BurgundyBoys96. I blog for MLS Now podcast, and I am occasionally on that podcast as well when we're talking about the Rapids. Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of alluded to it. We covered everything, I think, pretty well in terms of what's on the immediate horizon. And then all of a sudden, you just dropped it. World Cup qualifying. What's that squad going to look like? Did Berhalter find his guys in this Gold Cup? I think the experimentation is almost over on the U.S. For the U.S. national team. So, yeah, I think it looks like we could see Kellen Acosta and Sam Vines be a long-term part of U.S. national team call-ups, even for the A team, not just a Gold Cup. I think they've earned themselves as depth pieces. And then other than that, I mean, yeah, with the Rapids, a lot of things are changing. So we'll keep you updated on everything with transfers, because it is not over. There's one more week, everyone. Enjoy the game on Saturday, and let's go get 3 points against Austin.
Awesome.